Hello and welcome to another lesson. My name is Maddie from pieceofcakeenglish.com, and in this lesson we are going to learn some phrasal verbs that you can use to talk about problems and solutions. Let's get started. First of all, what is a phrasal verb? Well, a phrasal verb is a verb plus a preposition. For example, go up. Go up is a phrasal verb. When we say the price of gas went up is the phrasal verb because it has a part which is the main verb, went, and a part which is a preposition, up. Went up is a phrasal verb. Now, in this lesson, as I told you, we are going to learn 6 phrasal verbs that you can use to talk about problems and solutions. And number 1 is to talk something over. Now, what does it mean? When you say to talk something over, means to talk about a problem with another person in order to know their opinion or ask for advice about that problem. For example, if I have a problem at work, I would tell my boss that, all right, listen, I'd like to talk it over with my wife first. I'd like to talk it over with my wife first. It means first, I want to discuss this problem with my wife to know her opinion, to ask for her advice, and then I will let you know. Look at this other example. Employees had 2 weeks to talk the proposal over with their families before making a decision. Employees had 2 weeks to talk the proposal over with their families before making a decision, which means before making their final decision, they had 2 weeks to go home, talk to their families about the proposal they were offered at work, and then make their final decision. They had 2 weeks to talk it over.
You guys talk it over. You guys talk it over.
We'll talk it over. We'll talk it over.
I'll talk it over with Samuel. I'll talk it over with Samuel.
Number 2 is sort something out. Sort it out. When you say sort something out, you mean to successfully solve a problem. For example, my laptop has a problem and I have to sort it out. It means I have to try to solve my laptop's problem. I have to sort it out. Or look at this example. We had a productive meeting. I felt we sorted out a lot of problems. We had a productive meeting and I felt we sorted out a lot of problems. It means the meeting was so good that during the meeting, we sorted out, we solved, we found a solution for a lot of problems. Sort something out.
Until we sort things out. Until we sort things out.
We could sort them out. We could sort them out.
Well, we sort this one out. Well, we sort this one out.
Number 3 is to deal with something or to deal with somebody. Now, we use this phrasal verb when we want to say to do something to try to solve a problem. For example, it is a very difficult situation, but I have to deal with it. It is a very difficult situation, but I have to deal with it. It means the situation is really difficult, but I have to try hard to try to solve the problem, right? I have to deal with this problem. Don't worry about Jake. I will deal with him myself. Don't worry about Jake. I will deal with him. It means you don't have to think about Jake. Maybe Jake is going to get angry over what you are going to tell him. So don't worry about Jake. I will deal with him. It means I will try to solve the problem with him. To deal with something or to deal with somebody.
You go deal with your family, I'll deal with mine. You go deal with your family, I'll deal with mine.
You don't deal with him, you deal with me. You don't deal with him, you deal with me.
You deal with Marissa and I'll deal with the Colonel. You deal with Marissa and I'll deal with the Colonel.
Number 4 is a phrasal verb with face. To face up to something. Now, when you say to face up to a problem or to a problematic situation, you mean to accept that there is a problem. You know, most of the time when there is a problem with us or in our lives, we tend to ignore it, to say that there is not a big problem. No, I don't accept. That's not true. That's not right. We try to ignore it. We try to avoid it. But sometimes, at some point, we have to face up to the problem, right? It means we have to accept that there is something wrong. We have to accept that a problem exists. For example, she has to face up to the fact that he is guilty. She has to face up to the fact that he's guilty. Now imagine a wife whose husband is guilty and she doesn't want to accept the fact that he's guilty, right? So at some point the police might say, listen, ma'am, you have to face up to the fact that your husband is guilty. It means you have to accept it. Or let's take a look at another example. They will never offer you another job. You might as well face up to it. They will never offer you another job. You might as well face up to it. It means you have to accept the fact that they are not going to offer you a new job. That is it. You have to face up to it. It means you have to accept it.
You better face up to it, son. You better face up to it, son.
It made me face up to some stuff. It made me face up to some stuff.
Number 5 is with the verb come. To come up with. Now listen up. This phrasal verb has 2 prepositions. Come up with. To come up with an idea or to come up with a solution means to think of an idea, to think of a solution, to try to find or introduce a solution to a problem, to come up with something. For example, we have been asked to come up with some new ideas. We've been asked to come up with some new ideas. It means they have asked us to think of something new, some new ideas, and to propose the new ideas to them. We are supposed to come up with some new ideas. Here you are. These are the new ideas. Come up with some new ideas. Or let's take a look at another example. Is that the best you can do? You have to come up with a better solution. Is that the best you can do? You have to come up with a better solution. It means, I'm sure you can do something better. Your solution is terrible. You have to come up with a new solution to come up with.
They're gonna come up with ideas. They're gonna come up with ideas.
Don't come up with any more ideas. Don't come up with any more ideas.
Why I gotta come up with all the ideas? Why I gotta come up with all the ideas?
Now, sometimes when you are trying to deal with a problem, you might take a piece of paper or open a notebook, take a pen, and start writing down the ideas, right? Start writing down the possible solutions. Now, sometimes you may make a very long list of possible solutions. So, these are the things we can do with this problem. There are 100 solutions on my list, and I don't know which one is better than the other one. In this way, it's very confusing, right? You cannot solve the problem unless you start narrowing down the options. And that is the next phrasal verb, to narrow something down. But what does it mean? When you say to narrow something down, you mean to try to make a list of things smaller and smaller by crossing out the unnecessary or the worst options on the list. You start narrowing the list down to a few very good solutions. Now imagine your boss has asked you to come up with a couple of possible solutions to a problem. You make a list of 20 solutions, you go to your boss's office and say, all right, I have a list of 20 possible solutions. And your boss says, well, 20, that's a lot of solutions. You have to narrow it down to less than 5. Now listen up. You have to narrow it down to less than 5. It means you have to cross out 15 possible solutions and give me 5 very good ones. Narrow it down. Or let's take a look at another example. That is quite a long list. You have to narrow it down. That is quite a long list. You have to narrow it down.
Just narrow it down for me. Just narrow it down for me.
Let's just narrow it down. Let's just narrow it down.
That's what we do first. We narrow it down. That's what we do first. We narrow it down.
All right, guys. We've learned 6 phrasal verbs that you can use to talk about problems or solutions, right? Now, in this part, I'm going to read a story to you using all the 6 phrasal verbs that we have learned. But before that, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and click subscribe. You can do it now. All right, let's get to the story. So, let's start with the story. Yesterday, my boss asked me to move to a new department which was in another city. Well, as a married man, I had to talk it over with my wife to see if we could sort it out somehow. Did you get that? I had to talk it over with my wife to see if we could sort it out somehow. When I told my wife about it, she said that you have to deal with it yourself. That's my wife. She said, you have to deal with it yourself. I don't want to move to a new city. I have a job here. I have friends and I have family. I can't leave them all behind. So, I came up with a long list of possible things we could do and started crossing out the bad ones. I came up with a list and started crossing out the bad ones. In the end, I narrowed it down to 2 options. Either to quit my job or leave without my wife. 2 terrible options I had. Fortunately, my wife realized that I was also family. And she faced up to this issue and agreed to come with me. She faced up to this issue. It means she accepted that yes, there is a problem, but we are a family, we have to stick together. So she decided to come with me. And that was the story. In this story, I used all the 6 phrasal verbs. Talk it over, sort it out, deal with it. Came up with, narrow the list down to, and face up to. And it is the end of this video. So don't forget to practice all the 6 phrasal verbs and see you in the next lessons.